I will speak in English and then repeat in French. I think that all the journalists understand. Welcome to everyone. We have set up this brief moment with the media to give them an idea of the meaning of this event. We are celebrating today for the Day of Africa, and since it recurs at the 100th birthday year of Nelson Mandela, there is a special focus on Nelson Mandela and the significance of his legacy. I have not much more to add, and I give the floor to the two ambassadors. Who wants to start? The Dean of the African Corps, le doyen du corps diplomatique africain, l'ambassadeur de la République diplomatique du Congo.
Merci. C'est avec beaucoup de plaisir que je me trouve devant vous pour en fait vous associer à l'événement que nous allons commémorer cet après-midi. L'événement concerne la journée de l'Afrique. Donc c'est une célébration de la journée de l'Afrique. En fait, une journée qui rappelle historiquement la création de l'Union africaine le 25 juin 1963. Donc c'est un rappel historique de la journée et de la création de l'Union africaine. L'Union africaine, comme vous le savez, qui est l'organe qui est en train de promouvoir l'union des Africains, l'unité des Africains, de promouvoir le développement de l'Afrique, et promouvoir, la démocratie, promouvoir toutes les valeurs en Afrique. Donc c'est un rappel historique. Mais cette fois ici, nous avons voulu aussi en profiter pour commémorer le 100e anniversaire de naissance du président Mandela, qui est pour nous un grand leader en Afrique, mais aussi dans le monde. Nous avons voulu nous souvenir de lui, lui rendre tout l'hommage qu'il mérite, parce que pour nous c'est un modèle de leadership, un modèle qui doit inspirer tous les peuples, tous les pays en matière de gouvernance politique, économique, sociale et culturelle. Donc, c'est pour cela que nous avons voulu associer nos partenaires italiens à cette commémoration, parce que c'est important, étant donné que nous sommes en train de promouvoir la coopération avec l'Italie. Donc, c'est tout à fait normal que nous, en tant qu'Africains, nous puissions impliquer, associer les Italiens à travers le ministère des Affaires étrangères. Donc, c'est ça qui explique notre présence ici et votre présence. Voilà ce que je peux vous dire à ce niveau ici. Et j'en profite pour vous souhaiter bonne fête, parce que nous sommes tous associés à cette fête.
Merci, Monsieur l'ambassadeur.
So, firstly, we want to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation for hosting us, and they have done so much to support both the Africa Day celebration and the centenary of Nelson Mandela and Albertina Sisulu. So why is this day important? If you take the Africa Day celebration, this is the day on which the African Union was formed. And today, 55 countries are partners and belong to the African Union. many other countries and international organizations have observer status. Do you all speak English, or you want translation?
No, it's okay.
It's okay. Thank you. So for Africa, it's a big day, and all the embassies based in Rome, accredited to the Cardinale, have agreed that our theme for this year will be the 100-year centenary of Nelson Mandela. So the United Nations declared 18 July Nelson Mandela Day. It's celebrated throughout the world, 18 July. And the theme is for everybody to do 67 minutes of service. This 67 minutes represents the 67 years that President Nelson Mandela spent to serve the South African community, the community in Africa, and the world. So he gave 67 years of his life selflessly towards community service. And we all know, because of Nelson Mandela today, all of us are inspired to build a camp of good. And we don't have to focus on eradicating the camp of bad. We just keep strengthening the camp of good, and eventually good prevails. The messages of Nelson Mandela, what does his life teach us? He was courageous, he was tenacious, he continued despite whatever the challenges were. He was incarcerated in prison for 27 years with hard labor. He spent this entire period without complaining. When he came out of prison, he was asked, "What do you think of the architect of apartheid, the person who put you through all this?" And his response was, "He's a good human being, he's a good man." So he has come out and shown us that there is no need to keep any grudges. You have to forgive. The power of forgiveness was his message. I remember I was a young man, and when he came out of prison in 1990, the first thing Nelson Mandela called for was a cessation of fighting. He wanted an end to violence. And we felt this is impossible because we were being attacked every week. But he insisted that there will be violence, there will be a peaceful solution, and we will negotiate. So we were one of the few countries in the world where we didn't allow the war to continue. We stopped the violence. We brought about peace. We had a democratic election in 1994, which saw President Nelson Mandela become the first democratically elected president of the Republic of South Africa. What did he do by becoming president? He put together a government of national unity. He took into his cabinet people who were from the opposite side. So if you remember, past President de Klerk and Nelson Mandela won the Nobel Peace Prize together. It was a joint award of the Nobel Peace Prize. Because he didn't have the ability to see the differences. His talent and his ability was to build a rainbow nation. It didn't matter what your past was, it didn't matter what your race, creed, religion. He saw us all as human beings. So that was the lessons which he gave to us. The next thing that was proposed during his term as president is we created a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. What does that mean? The person who tortured me in prison could come to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and say, "Well, I did the following deeds against this human being." So long as you told the truth, there was no punishment. And we were asked to forgive and accept. So people who did crimes against humanity just had to explain, because we needed to know where the bodies of our people, loved ones, children, wives, husbands, what happened to them, who was killed in prison, what were the conditions, where are their mortal remains, how do we give them a decent burial. And that was it. There was no punishment. Of course, you had one or two human beings who refused to cooperate. Then the state went out to prosecute them. So the whole history that Nelson Mandela left us the legacy with was that we will forgive, we will work together, we will build a rainbow nation. So in celebrating this 100 years, the theme has been, be the legacy. You as a journalist has to be the legacy. You have to report openly, honestly, and truthfully. We should not be spinning lines. Right? And you know what fake media is doing today. Me as an ambassador, I have to build the legacy. I have to be the legacy. In my interlocking with the Italian counterparts, I have to be honest. I have to be trustworthy. I have to work to build this partnership between Italy, South Africa, between Europe and Africa. So we chose as a South African embassy that we don't want to commemorate Nelson Mandela Day as though Nelson Mandela belongs to South Africa. Nelson Mandela is a world icon. He's an icon of Africa, and of course he's an icon of South Africa. But we shared him with all the embassies in Rome from Africa. And we got this weekend of celebrations, celebrating both Africa Day and Nelson Mandela 100-year centenary. But we also want to celebrate with the Italians. And the first launch, the official launch, is taking place at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because we are true partners. And we will continue to build this partnership between Italy and South Africa. Now, in saying this, I want to thank 4 groups of people who we believe have helped us to end colonialization and also end apartheid. In fact, this story is not told between the Italians, and you should be saying it more often, and I hope you carry it well. There's a first group of people, and you'll meet some of them downstairs. We're going to honor them and pay tribute to them. These are Italians who were in the trade unions, who were in the left, communist, but they supported our struggle and our people selflessly. They gave us whatever. In fact, in Reggio Emilia was the first opportunity we had as a revolutionary movement to address the international solidarity movement. You all gave us the ground. It was on Italian soil that we could speak to the rest of the world to say this is what's happening in South Africa, this is what the apartheid regime is doing, and we need your help. Oliver Tambo, the president of the ANC before Nelson Mandela, worked with Centuni in Reggio Emilia, and you all gave us this platform. And Reggio Emilia has done a lot to promote our freedom and the end of colonialism, not only in South Africa, in Angola, in Mozambique, and in South Africa. The second set, which we must not forget to pay tribute to, and we're going to do this over this year. We're going to keep saying thank you, thank you, thank you to the Italian community. The second group is the Catholic Church and the Pope. So you may not know, but there were many archbishops in South Africa who stood in the front of our marches. I remember as a young man, I felt very safe because behind them, the police would not shoot. So imagine the situation in Palestine today if the church leaders were standing in front. Those poor children who have been shot would not be shot. I'm one of those children who grew up to be a man because of the church leaders being in front. And together with them, all other denominations, all other religious leaders gave us the cover and the protection. They gave us shelter, they gave us those who were deprived of their home, they gave them housing, but they looked after our people who were suffering. So it's the leftist, it's the Italian church. But this Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they had a very astute level of understanding that you need peace, you need a negotiated settlement, you need Mandela to be freed. So their interactions in the southern tip of Africa, Angola, in Mozambique, in South Africa, played a key role to convince those who had power that you lose nothing in losing power. So the diplomacy was well executed, and it helped us to come together and heal. So we say thank you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and all the people who came before you. You all did a good job. Now, you'll always have a problem with the right and the business sector, but Italian business, unlike many other countries, when we call for sanctions, they continue to take more access in the market as others refuse to participate in our economy. Italian businesses, in my view, chose strategic sectors. They chose sectors like in energy and so, which supports the people of the country, but they never cannibalized, they never exploited our markets. So in a way, they gave us support. And this whole celebration, this year, 2018, going into 2019, for 12 months, we will have celebrations throughout Italy and the world. Now, I must say, as ambassador, I'm a new ambassador. I've been here for only 3 months. I'm so overwhelmed. I think the Italians love and respect Mandela more than any other nation in the world. Every week I'm called to some marathon. I'm called by so many organizations to say, please, we don't want anything from you. We just want to celebrate the life of Mandela with your embassy. And it's across Italy, from the southern tip right to the northern tip, from the east to the west. So the Italians understand our plight. They understand what it is to be dominated by an evil force. Because you, in your own way, 70 years ago, went through your own pains, and you share that pain with us. So we are so impressed, and we are so grateful to the various organizations, to the various companies, to the various mayors, presidents of the region, and different departments, different agencies who are coming forward and saying we want to participate in the celebration with you. Now, I want to say something which is not spoken about in the Italian media. Do you know you have a fantastic Italian community in South Africa? You have 60 to 80,000 Italians. We have the first Italian acting judge. Standing behind you videoing is one of our greatest South African Italians. He's an advocate, Maurizio Moriani. He controls and he works with, he organizes the Italian community. So he's flown up to be party of this event. But there's an Italian club, very well organized, very well run, commemorating every event that Italy needs to celebrate and keeping the Italian community together. And this society gets the Italian community in South Africa to continue doing development work, continue promoting non-racialism, non-sexism, and democracy. They have just finished in a non-racial games, bringing all societies together to participate with the government and different sports clubs. They also have built an Italian language faculty in our leading university called the Witwatersrand University. They also have various schools in South Africa that are run on Italian teaching methods. We refer to them as Italian schools, but the best of your education systems from pre-primary, primary to high school are offered to South Africans. And many of the South Africans of Italian origin are on the boards, financing, working with the communities on this. And they're working across the board to do good things, to continue building peace, democracy, non-racialism, and non-sexism. So we say thank you, and we honor such people. So I'll stop there, and maybe you want to put any questions to either of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Question. Ambassador, this year marks the centenary of the birth of Nelson Mandela, but is also a transition year for South Africa. It began with the resignation of Zuma and the election of the new president, Ramaphosa. What are the challenges for the country ahead of presidential election next year? And yes.
I must quote, we were just discussing earlier, when President Mandela was interviewed, and there's a book that records all his quotations, and he says about Cyril Ramaphosa, the new president, that this is a dynamic young man, and he will have a big role to play in South African's politics. There are many photos where you see President Zuma, President Ramaphosa, and President Mandela. So yes, it's a very tough time for us. What this lesson gave to us is that the South African society is resilient, it's strong, in that despite what we go through and our love for the revolutionary movement, we will stand up against wrong. So there was a huge calling, not from opposition and not from outside world. It was from the inside of the African National Congress, who said, bad behavior, what is wrong, will not be allowed to be tolerated. So President Zuma was requested to resign on the 14th. President Ramaphosa came to power on the 15th. He was sworn in as president. The economic confidence levels have shot up. The global bilateral, multilateral relationships have all risen to a height it's never been before. The confidence about, even between the foreign ministries and ourselves, has risen. We are becoming now more stronger in all our relationships globally. And what we promise as our Ministry of Foreign Affairs is to build back that legacy of Mandela, because the world relies on us to uphold the torch of truth and to speak out when there is darkness. So our foreign ministry will continue to build on the principles of Mandela. Where have we pushed back? Job creation, poverty, underdevelopment. These three evils continue to stick with us because it's from a legacy of 400 years. And of course, this is where, again, we have the Italian companies, we have so many others, but the Italian business community have signaled clearly that they're willing to work with us in the fields of agriculture, fields of energy, in the fields of environment management, and wherever there is technology, people are coming forward and saying, can we work with your country? So yes, we have to create jobs, we have to grow our economy at a faster rate. Our president has therefore announced that we will have a job summit. We will address how we start to create jobs. And we will have an investor conference in October where we're targeting $100 billion of investment in the next 5 years. Because if you don't have new investment, you can't grow your GDP. That is a big constraint for us. And again, I'm convinced that Italy as a government and a country, the business people of Italy will see opportunity. The Italian community in South Africa will make it easy for their Italian brothers and sisters to come and participate in our economy. And together we will do more.
Okay, just another question.
Sure.
About the process of expropriation of land for white people. How is proceeding this process?
We are not doing a good job by telling the story well. What I will be doing, the chairman of this committee is past President Kgalema Motlanthe. He has done the research in the past 4 or 5 years. Now, Italy is very special to us, and you have a mayor in our midst. Yes? Yes. President Motlanthe has been invited by his place. He will be there on the 12th of August. But we will use his presence to explain to our Italian partners exactly what we're doing about the land expropriation. You see, 85 to 90% of the population only have access to 5% of the land. And before the apartheid regime collapsed, they took large parcels of land and put them into trust holdings. So these people never paid for the land. So it's wrong to think that we are just going to take away land that you bought with hard-earned money. We are just reconfiguring the ownership, and where land can be freed up for urban housing and for agriculture, we will make sure that indigenous people who rightfully own the land, have got the land. Now, I was quite surprised. I was walking in Florence, I was in Sicily the other day, and there are these big palaces which belong to the nobles. I asked them, how did you come to own it? They say, no, after the Second World War, we just took it. So this concept is not new. It's happened in Italy, it's happened around the world. Right? And of course, we will do it with respecting international law. We will do it in terms of governance and the parliamentary system. So right now, the dialogue has opened. Everyone has a view and a comment. What we cannot allow is that 85-90% of the population will only for the next 10 generations have access to 5% of the land. We have put a rider. We've said it should never impact on food security. It should never impact on the agricultural sector. So why does my job and his job become more important? Because all the UN agencies dealing with agriculture and food are based in Rome. So ex-President Kgalema Motlanthe will come. We will work again with our partners. We will not do anything that is globally unacceptable in global law and global governance. That is what we pride ourselves on, right? And there have been stories floating around which are exaggerations and false, and you have a very far right which is going around the world creating an image that we are unfair. If there's anything Nelson Mandela gave us as a lesson, is fairness and justice. So, and when we do that, we don't see that the people we're taking our land from are from another race group or anything. We have invited everybody to sit with us and resolve this problem as South African citizens. So be assured, it's not going to lead to a negative impact.
Okay. Today we are celebrating Africa in terms of all the continent. One step back to the African Union, I want to ask you both, in terms of, you said before that Mandela was a guide for all the Africans and for all African continent. And so in terms of economic growth and commercial development, etc., how you can decline the teaching of Mandela in terms of human rights, in terms of fighting corruption and fighting all the human bad treatments, in terms of economic growth and business development?
Look, part of what Mandela said is that he's fighting for a world where opportunities are open to everyone, black and white, to every segment, male, female. As South Africa, we don't see ourselves as an island. We are the biggest economy on the African continent, but our border policy has been open. People have come into our country to seek jobs, look at opportunities. And yes, sometimes our local communities feel aggrieved, but we manage it well. So our immigration policies have been good. We have encouraged our business people to invest across Africa. And we have, within the African Union, the African Renaissance and the NEPAD, where we work together to build infrastructure, to create economic opportunities, build economic hubs. So we cannot become a rich country and leave the rest of Africa behind. We have just signed an agreement, and it's going to be finalized, where the entire continent will become a single customs union. So it will influence trade between the countries and allow the free flow of goods and people.
Thank you.
Bon, j'espère que j'ai bien compris, parce qu'il y a là le problème de leadership de Mandela, le problème de corruption et de développement économique. Oui. Ici, disons que le deuxième thème de la journée de la commémoration actuelle, le deuxième thème de l'Union africaine, c'est la lutte contre la corruption. Donc c'est la lutte contre la corruption. C'est un thème, donc c'est une préoccupation de l'Union africaine, une préoccupation de lutte contre la corruption en matière de gouvernance. Ça signifie que pour l'Afrique, nous sommes engagés dans la lutte contre la corruption pour améliorer les systèmes de gouvernance afin d'accélérer le développement. C'est-à-dire que nous sommes conscients que l'état actuel du système de gouvernance caractérisé par ou dominé par la corruption freine le développement. Et que pour pouvoir relancer l'économie, aller de l'avant, nous devons combattre la corruption pour pouvoir améliorer les systèmes de gouvernance politique, les systèmes de gouvernance économique et les systèmes de gouvernance sociale et culturelle. Donc, c'est aussi une préoccupation. C'est aussi une matière de coopération, parce que une matière de coopération avec l'Italie, ça signifie que nous encourageons les activités, les projets qui s'intègrent dans ce domaine de lutte contre la corruption.
Okay, merci.
Okay. I think we need to finish here if you don't have any other questions, because we need to go downstairs for the conference.
And we can even, they can even continue on a
Please.
bilateral
We
informal
will follow
basis.
you downstairs. And we do a shaking hands downstairs where there is a backdrop dedicated to the African Day.
Merci.
Questo è un giornale sperimentale sull'Africa, voilà, con notizie minuto per minuto mentre arriva il
Ok,
paese
ti posso lasciare il mio?
Yes.
Ti scrivo con il mio contatto, va bene? Purtroppo non sono fornito.
Ok. Molto bella sta cosa.
Forte, eh?
Cioè, quindi